Ladies and gentlemen, let's close up your week 7 right now with the Sunday Night Football slate. One that does not have a good total by any means. We bet the under, and there's some weather concerns, right? As of this recording, I'm recording this, by the way, on Friday afternoon, so injury news we'll try and speculate on. But as of this recording right now, the total's only dropped by about a point. It's a low total anyways. We took on the betting video earlier this week, the under in the game, so we're trying to beat that closing line, and the weather can only help us there. But with all of that factored in, I have the projections, ranks, ownership, the optimizer, all that stuff is up on Patreon. It'll be updated just in case some injury news goes a little wonky. We'll update it, of course. So let's get into the showdown slate. We're going to go position by position. There's a lot of players in play because of what could potentially happen with injuries here and the game flow because of weather. So there you go. There's a subscribe button. Let's end your Sunday nice, your holy day. Secure the subscribe button, make sure you got that going. And let's slide into now the players. So we slide into the players, and it's going to be in pricing order here. And up top is Jonathan Taylor, who the last time on a primetime slate looked great for a 76-yard receiving touchdown, 2 total touchdowns, had 150 total yards. He balled the fuck out. And now he's coming off of back-to-back games with big performances. And a lot of people are going to want to own him, rightfully so at the price point. Now he is averaging 17 touches per game over the last 3 games here, but this is a tougher matchup. This is a borderline top 10 run defense. They rank top 6 right now in tackling. They only allow 1.14 yards before contact, so they're closing these gaps, especially on the interior where Jonathan Taylor has been having a lot of success. Now he leads the NFL in red zone touches, evaded tackles, yards created per touch, and yards created. He's number 1 on. So Jonathan Taylor is playing fantastic right now. Now for me, I'm not going to be putting him as a full-on yes here. There's a couple of reasons why. He's a 4-point underdog in this one. Although he's been solid in terms of his pass-catching role with this team, it's not like he's had an elite pass-catching role. He's getting a couple of targets here and there, but it's nothing that I'm going to say Nyheim Hines won't quickly come back if they do get down in this game. It's a tough matchup with the slow-paced teams. I don't know how often he'll be in the red zone, and it's just the price point, right? I only have Jonathan Taylor as of right now in my projections on Patreon. Get him down below if you want to. 14.6 fantasy points. That's not great. That's not great by any means, Bob. So Jonathan Taylor is a maybe for us. And now we slide to what's happening in San Francisco. Trey Lance has not practiced as of this recording. Jimmy G has been limited in practice and says he feels good and he feels right in all of his practices. So he is likely to start at this point in this game. So I'm assuming Jimmy G is starting for this game. If Trey Lance starts, lots of things get wonky. It doesn't look anywhere near as good, like at all, for any of those pass catchers. But Jimmy Garoppolo, I expect to start in this game. And Jimmy Garoppolo, look, they play slow. Like he only has in games that he's actually completed so far this year, 25, 30, and 40 pass attempts. 40 against the Green Bay Packers in that game where they had to play from behind, which was a little bit of faster paced of a game. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case in this one, where both teams are going to muck it up, especially if the weather's bad. I think you see closer to the 25 to 30 pass attempts for Jimmy G, and he's $10,600. So Jimmy G is going to remain in play for me, but at this price point, it's hard to say, yeah, this is definitely the guy you want to get to because of the fact that I see this game being very slow paced. I don't see a lot of upside. For the fantasy points that I have him at, it keeps him firmly in play, but not something that I think is a smash play. And just jumping off of that, Trey Lance is obviously not in play at this price point if Jimmy G is going to start. Now you get the other quarterback here who's actually a fair price, who in week 6 was the player of the week in the AFC with his 400-yard game and almost winning, losing in overtime against Baltimore on Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football. So now you get Carson Wentz coming out here at $10,200. And Carson Wentz here is a very fair price point, but the exact same things could be said about Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz in all these games so far this year has yet to throw for 40 attempts. 37 is the most attempts that he's thrown for. Carson Wentz in his offensive line that is getting Quentin Nelson back, hopefully healthy now, starting to come off the IR. We'll see if he plays. It's still the 30th ranked pass blocking unit with some other injuries. It's a negative pass blocking advantage here. He's down Paris Campbell. T.Y. Hilton is gimpy. Maybe in this game he'll have Michael Pittman. Like the offense is looking like a Michael Pittman, Zach Pascal, and if there's no T.Y. Hilton, it's the 7th rounder Mike Strachan, or it's potentially DeMichael Harris, who's only played mainly special teams and 2 offensive snaps for them this year. Ashton Doolin. Like these are the guys he's going to have to throw to. So in a game where I expect a slower pace, I expect closer to his average, if not below average, the 32 attempts that he's attempting per game. But because you get a nice little price discount off of Jimmy G, and it's a decent price discount, right? You're getting $400 in savings here. He's going to be the quarterback that I lean to get to here in this situation. Again, both are firmly in play. Now, the guy who looks like the best play in the slate, even if the weather is bad because of how deep his targets are downfield, looks to be Deebo Samuel at $9,600. Deebo Samuel is my highest projected player in the slate, and normally those guys are at least the top 2 or 3 priced guys. He is the 5th most expensive player on the slate, and I have him projecting for 2 more points than anybody else on the slate right now. So Deebo Samuel looks fantastic. I mean, it's hard not to like Deebo in this situation. There's no George Kittle this week. He's still on IR. The Brandon Ayuk role is all up in the air. He's averaging over 10 targets per game right now in a crazy 36% target share, which is number 2 in the NFL. He's number 1 in the NFL in yards after the catch. Deebo Samuel is a strong yes for me with a 24 team implied total. And even if he doesn't have a massive blow up game of over 100 yards, because because he's being targeted so much and low ADOT, even if it's bad weather, the wind won't affect the throws that go 0 to 6 yards down the field. You could really still see a solid game of 7 catches for 70 yards out of Deebo, and at this price point, that is more than justifiable, especially with not a lot of other guys looking great. Michael Pittman finally saw himself drop down last week, and before we actually break down Michael Pittman, since we've talked about some of these players now, I want to let you know about the prop that I've taken, since we have now talked about both of them. I've taken this prop on Prize Picks. It's just over/under on player props, and you get a free bet up to $100 Rooskies if Carson Wentz throws for 1 passing yard. So it's basically going to happen. Just take their free money if you're a new user. If you use the code SAL, the link down below will help you get there. Deebo Samuel over 67.5 yards. I have Deebo for the 80s in yardage, and I got him at 64.5 earlier in the week in another video. I'll go back and double hit that one, especially with no George Kittle. And then Carson Wentz under 229.5 yards. I think this team obviously wants to run the ball. With the bad weather situations going on here, I think you see closer to 30 attempts for Carson Wentz, and I'm just hoping that he averages somewhere around 7.5 to below that, which is above the NFL average. So as long as he's not elite efficient in this game, as long as there's not 76-yard touchdowns to the running back like there was a couple weeks ago in primetime, I feel good about that. So we take the under on Carson Wentz, we take the over on the yardage for Deebo Samuel. Again, prizepicks.com. You type it in, you go get this limited time offer, use the code SAL when you sign up, and your first bet for free. So if you want to just put $20 on it, bang, they'll give you $20. Whether you win or lose, you get another $20 just like that if Carson Wentz throws for just 1 passing yard in this game. Take advantage of this free $1 Rooskies if you have not yet already. So we can go to Michael Pittman now at $8,800, and this is kind of going to depend. At this price point, it's a fair price point. Last time on primetime, you saw him have a huge game, and he does look like a traditional X. No Paris Campbell out there, but Campbell hasn't been that involved. It kind of depends more so on T.Y. Hilton, who T.Y. Hilton, you saw Michael Pittman. There's no coincidence that T.Y. Hilton comes in, has 70 yards in the first half, and then gets banged up. But in that exact same game, Michael Pittman sees his lowest target share of the year of just 3 targets, even though he played the most snaps of the year at 97%. Expect somewhere around 30 routes and 6 to 8 targets. Expect more efficiency and more downfield usage if Hilton is out this week. Hilton, they say, is a true 50-50 to play. I have Michael Pittman as a yes, as I expect him to play and be underdogs, but just like I don't like Carson Wentz's over in yardage, this would probably be more so towards we need a touchdown here, or maybe a 6-catch, 90-yard game, but we need more so that touchdown out of him. Big body receiver, lots of red zone usage. It's obviously possible. Elijah Mitchell is next up here. The Elijah Mitchell price point definitely keeps him in play, but it's almost to the point where he can't be a smash at $8,200. Now, every time he's been on the field, he's been the guy. Like last week, Trey Sermon only played 3% of the snaps, or their last game, week 5, and only saw 1 touch. Whereas Elijah Mitchell, in the 3 games he's actually played on offense this year, he's seen 19, 19, and 11 touches. And that 11-touch game was Trey Lance playing in week 5, and Trey Lance ran the ball like 16 times in his own right, so that's where you see it get a little bit skewed. I'd expect around 60% of the snaps. I'd expect around 15 touches for an underdog in this game, so it can't make him a standout play, but Elijah Mitchell for me does project out for double-digit fantasy points, so he'll be in play. The next man up is T.Y. Hilton, who we've talked about his injury concerns for this game, a true 50-50, did not practice on the Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday practice reports. Saturday, before I'm recording this on Friday, but Saturday there'll be some sort of report out there for the game if he did any walkthrough stuff. He looked good and effective when he returned, 3 for 70, but now he's dealing with yet again another injury on an aging body and not the greatest environment for just deep passes if the weather is bad. T.Y. Hilton will stay in play because of the cheap price point, but again, just track the injury news here. If T.Y. Hilton was to miss, Ashton Doolin would probably operate as the wide receiver 3, Zach Pascal the wide receiver 2, then you see Mike Strachan and DeMichael Harris kind of get a little bit more snaps, maybe step on the field some as the wide receiver 4/5 in this offense. Next up is Brandon Ayuk, who a report just came out from the general manager, John Lynch, that they are not seeing, or he is, the quote is, taking strides the way we wanted him to, even though this entire team is like that. Like Jimmy Garoppolo's like that, Trey Sermon is like that, like this entire team's like that, but they continue to talk down on Brandon Ayuk. Maybe because there's more questions about him, because he's more of a fantasy weapon, and he was fantastic last year, and it's an odd kind of Dante Pettis situation here, even though he's a more traditional, not X build, but close to it at the wide receiver position. But his snaps have come down each of the last 3 weeks. Since the Green Bay game, week 3, when he played 86% of the snaps, they've dropped each week since then. You should still expect, though, about 25 routes. Like, he's still the wide receiver 2 on this team in terms of the routes that he's running. Definitely ahead of Mohamed Sanu, way ahead of Trent Sherfield and Travis Benjamin, and there's no George Kittle. So I would expect 25 routes. This price point is surely steep, though, especially from the usage that we're seeing out of him. But if there's going to be Jimmy G out there, there's a little bit more upside. Probably touchdown or bust at this price point and with the usage we're seeing right now out of him, but still solid. Similar things things can be said for Zach Pascal. Like, he's going to operate as the wide receiver 2 in this offense if there's no T.Y. Hilton. He's priced up, not to the same extent as a Brandon Ayuk, but it's still a steep price point for a guy who's mainly relying on touchdowns this year. Like, you're seeing at least 5 targets in every game, but they're not downfield usage like a Michael Pittman or T.Y. Hilton or even a Paris Campbell in the middle of the field. You're seeing these shorter passes. So he had the 2 touchdown game week 1, gets another touchdown week 2. If you're not getting the touchdowns, you'll probably see 5, maybe 6 targets on 25 to 30 routes run in this game if there's no T.Y. Hilton and because there's no Campbell. So this price point is fair. It's not a standout price point for a guy who is not a great athlete by any means. He's got a little bit of size on him, but not a great athlete. He's mainly on this team because, look, he's a solid receiver, but he's one of the best run-blocking wide receivers, believe it or not, up there with Chris Godwin. Alan Lazard on the Packers is making a name for himself. These types of guys are monsters in the run-blocking department. You keep going down now, and you start to get to some plays that have not been getting there lately, and you look at Nyheim Hines, and you're a little bit concerned. Like, Nyheim Hines only played in that last game. Snaps are dropping in each of the past 4 weeks. Only 23% of the snaps. Now, they blew out Houston, so it makes sense that he's not on the field and Jonathan Taylor is. You basically need Indy to get down in this game, which they are underdogs, but by a decent amount to see Nyheim Hines have a role. He only has 13 touches in his last 3 games, and he's priced at $5,600. Like, this price range of, let's say, Brandon Ayuk, Zach Pascal, Nyheim Hines, and then we're going to get to somebody else in Mo Alley Cox, it's all overpriced dudes who all need a touchdown to probably pay off for you, or a massive, massive underdog game for Nyheim Hines to have a 7-8 target game. So they all remain in play, but none of them project out that great for me. Like, I have basically Brandon Ayuk, Pascal, Nyheim Hines all around 7 to 7.5 fantasy points, and the guy who looks the worst out of all these guys is Mo Alley Cox. Like, I do not want to play Mo Alley Cox this week. Can he score 2 touchdowns like he did 2 or 3 weeks ago? Sure, he can, but he's $5,200. He's $5,200, Mo Alley Cox, and he has not ran in a single game over 16 routes so far this year. He's averaging 3 targets per game. So unless Mo Alley Cox has 2 catches for 2 touchdowns, he's not going to pay off this price tag. Even if he has 2 catches, 20-something yards and a touchdown, even then it doesn't look that great. 10 fantasy points at $5,200 is fine. It's fine, but that's having a big game for you. So I'm off on Mo Alley Cox. We can pull up now who Ross Dwelley, I was going to say, is not a good play, but then I remembered George Kittle is on IR, and at $4,800, he's not producing that great, Ross Dwelley, right? In week 5 with no Kittle, he did run 26 routes, which was 3rd on this team, and he only saw 2 targets, catching 2 of them for 25 yards. But again, Jimmy G wasn't in that game. It was way, way, way more run first with Trey Lance in the offense, a slower paced game. So Ross Dwelley now with another week of being the tight end 1 on this team, I at least like him more than Mo Alley Cox. You get a $400 price discount. I have Ross Dwelley for more points. When it comes between Ross Dwelley and the kickers, I'm usually going to lean for the position player who has touchdown upside. So Dwelley, yet another guy in play. And if we just pull through here, like, there's not a lot of yeses. Like the Carson Wentz, Deebo, Michael Pittman, and you could probably throw Jimmy G into that. Those guys are clear yeses that stand out to me. After that, it's just a lot of guys who look to be at their current price points, touchdown or bust, in a low-scoring game where there won't be a lot of touchdowns. It starts to get a little bit iffy. Kickers are both in play for me, as I always say, in terms of the projections on these kickers. 7 points for Sly, 6.8 for Michael Badley in the projections down below. I guess ownership and leverage, if you want to leave an extra $200 on the table by going to Michael Badgley. These guys are 2 teams that are dealing with kicker injuries, right? Their kickers in Robbie Gould and Blankenship are both on IR, so it's an interesting game. If bad weather's there, probably shy away from it. Kyle Juszczyk is on here at $4,000. He's another guy who's overpriced and probably becomes touchdown or bust. Elijah Mitchell came back and Kyle Juszczyk role diminished. Jermichael Hasty is designated to return off the IR a week ago before their bye. He might return for this game, right? So Kyle Juszczyk, the only thing he has going for him is he's running routes, but he's a fullback. He's not running routes down the field, so all of his receptions and catches are going to be like 4 or 5 yard catches and hoping to get some yards after the catch. He ran 20 routes in week 5, and with a guy in Trey Sermon in there who was probably looking to check down more than throwing downfield as a rookie with not a lot of starts in the NFL. You saw 4 targets, 3 catches for 35 yards, so about 6.5 fantasy points for what was one of the best possible outcomes for Kyle Juszczyk outside of a touchdown. So Kyle Juszczyk at $4,000 for me, I only have him projecting out right now for like 5 fantasy points. At that point, I just don't want it. Like, I'm going to put him on here as a no. And here's the thing. If Jermichael Hasty's in play, he's definitely a no. If Jermichael Hasty does not play in this game, I guess you can put Kyle Juszczyk in there. I just find it hard to go to Kyle Juszczyk, even over the kickers in bad weather, but definitely over a Ross Dwelley. Both defenses in a low total game with bad weather and quarterbacks on both sides not being anything of world beaters and definitely susceptible to interceptions and holding the ball in the pocket too long and fumbles, things like that. The defenses are in play. Now you start to get to these guys that somebody in this range is going to do something depending on the injuries. You at least have to hope so. Otherwise, we're not really finding much value. You're building this slate without touching Jonathan Taylor or some of the top end guys because you just need to save money. Jermichael Hasty, just track the news on him. Jermichael Hasty for me right now is going to be a no. He's still on IR as of this recording. They would have to activate him before 4 p.m. on Sunday's day. So if you're watching this on Saturday or Sunday morning, well, this is probably going to come out Sunday afternoon. So by 4 p.m. Eastern time, if he was to be active, obviously it bumps out Kyle Juszczyk from any role. It doesn't make Elijah Mitchell look as good. And I would say that he probably sees in this game, maybe 6-7 touches. He's not a good pass protector. He's a decent pass catcher. They probably spell him a little bit with Elijah Mitchell. Either way, at the price point, doesn't look that great as they seem pretty locked in on Mitchell. Mohamed Sanu's a fair price point. Like, this is a clear wide receiver 3 on a team. He plays out of the slot right now in somewhat of a part-time role in 3 wide receiver sets. He's ran week 5, 17 routes. He saw 3 targets. He now has 8 targets in his last couple of games. Now, these are low upside, right? Like, unless he scores a touchdown like he did earlier in the year, I think maybe against the Packers. Unless he's going for a touchdown, he's probably not doing much for you. But if you're trying to find something in the cheap range, he at least stands out. Like, guys that are outside of the defenses and kickers, you're looking right now below $5,000 at not many options. It's barely Ross Dwelley at $4,800. Juszczyk, we already said we don't really like. Hasty is on IR and probably doesn't have a role even if he comes back right away. And then you get to these guys in Trey Sermon, who we just saw in week 5, only had 1 touch on the ground. If there's no Trey Lance, maybe they give a little bit more carries to some other running backs instead of Lance taking on so many. But even if Trey Sermon sees his snaps go from 3% to 12% at $2,000, he's probably overpriced in his own right? And Kyle Juszczyk is still going to be the better running back play on the same team over him. Marlon Mack, this could be the last chance that they have to audition Marlon Mack for a trade. The trade deadline, I believe, is November 17th. So Marlon Mack is potentially looking for a trade here. Even though they're auditioning him, it's not like he's getting a big role in this offense. He's played 20% of the snaps on the year. He's seen touches of 5, 11, 6, and 5 in 4 games. So I would say expect somewhere around 4 to 6 touches in this game. 4 to 6 touches with really no receiving game work. So if Marlon Mack at $1,400 isn't scoring a touchdown, even in his good games of 6 carries for 40 yards, which would be averaging 6.5 to 7 yards a carry, that's still not getting you there at $1,400. So Marlon Mack for me, not in play. I currently have Marlon Mack on the Patreon projections down below, projecting out for 3.4 points. Actually, let's just put him in play just if you're trying to look for a punt below $2,000. He'll stay on the sheet. Otherwise, again, 3.4 fantasy points with not much of a ceiling or a floor there. As an underdog in this one with no real pass catching role, because that would be Nyheim Hines' role or even Jonathan Taylor's. Hard to see him really hitting that, so I'll flip my mind yet again and say let's put him as a no. Jack Doyle comes on here. Jack Doyle is another guy that, like, I want to, because of the name value, I want to say, yeah, this guy is somebody that I want to play. But look at the usage that he's getting. He only has 3 catches in his last 4 games. He's only ran 21 total routes in the last 3 games. Now, 2 of those, they were blowing out the other team, so it's going to be more run blocking and less tight ends going out for passes. In games where the Colts get down, you see closer to like this 20 to 25 routes run. So if they are indeed trailing in this one, maybe you get 20 routes out of Jack Doyle at $1,000. You hope that one of those turns into a touchdown. Ashton Doolin, $600, only in play if there's no T.Y. Hilton. He would operate more than likely as the wide receiver 3 if there's no Hilton. It'd be Pittman, Pascal, and then Doolin, who's ran 40 routes and seen 6 targets on the season so far. He's been on this team for a decent amount of time. He's a player that they like. Only in play. I'll put him as a no right now. Only in play if there's no T.Y. Hilton. He'd probably run about 15 to 20 routes. Charlie Warner is mainly a blocker. He saw a season-high 11 routes because there was no Week 5 George Kittle. So I would expect 8 to 10 routes out of him. I would expect maybe 1 target, unless that's a 1 yard for a touchdown on play action. It's not really going to do much for us. Trent Sherfield has ran 0 routes Week 5 as Travis Benjamin seemed to have stole his job. Travis Benjamin had 5 routes in that game, though, so it's not like I'm interested in Travis Benjamin. Juwan Jennings only has 9 total routes on the season so far. He had a touchdown earlier in the year, which might make people think that he's interesting because he's averaging 3 fantasy points per game, but it all came in that one game. Right now, Juwan Jennings only has 1 target since week 2. He's not a play, so there's like no punt options here. Kylan Granson's a tight end 3. He's ran 36 routes. He's a rookie this year for Indy. He's not in play. Mike Strachan can only be in play if there's no T.Y. Hilton as the wide receiver 4, as a big-bodied, faster receiver out of a small school. First pick of the 7th round. He's not a play, neither is DeMichael Harris, though. DeMichael Harris, mainly a special teams player, only 2 offensive snaps this year. So if we go through this again, like, it's tough. This is a tough slate. Like, if you're just trying to find value, it's going to remain largely in the kickers and defenses and Ross Dwelley. Like, maybe JaMychal Hasty opens up. Maybe you want to punt with Jack Doyle or Marlon Mack. Mohamed Sanu, right? These are not good options. Like, your value plays, you're hoping to get the wide receiver values and even the tight ends in Ross Dwelley. Like, you're hoping to get like 3 targets out of these guys and not deep targets down the field. So it does look like a kickers and defenses slate, depending on the weather for the kickers. Definitely looks like a defensive slate. You're not finding much, right? It's kind of this vast range of this really expensive plays, who those really expensive plays don't even look that great. Like Jonathan Taylor, sure, he's been balling out the last couple of weeks, averaging 20.3 fantasy points per game, but he's still insanely expensive. Trey Lance is expensive, but he's probably not going to start. And then you get this drop-off of this 6 to 8K range is tough. Like Elijah Mitchell, Hilton, Ayuk, Pascal, and Hines, you're going to have to be forced to play those guys. But most of them, if not all of them, are going to need a touchdown or bust for you. So that is where we are at this week for the Sunday Night Football video. You can check out Prize Picks, and you can take those props for a limited time offer. And also, you can check out SuperDraft if you have not yet heard of SuperDraft. Their contest is not yet out for Sunday's Showdown slate, but their main slate one we could look at. It's a $200,000 to first contest. This is going to start by the time you see this, but just for reference, it's a multiplier format. Guys on SuperDraft that look good are going to be guys who have high multipliers and nice projections, like a Deebo Samuel. This week, like an Elijah Mitchell. Sneakier plays are going to be the kickers on that platform, believe it or not. Zach Pascal, that type of plays, you can get a free $25 if you want to use the code SAL on SuperDraft. The big difference on SuperDraft is that the contests don't fill. Normally on the Sunday night slates, they're filling at about 70%, meaning that if you enter a lineup, you beat 30% of the field because 30% of the field takes a zero because the contest didn't fill and it's a guaranteed prize pool, a GPP. So the site has to pay out those other spots even though they're all taking zeros. So be sure to take advantage of that because I'm like their main marketer in terms of bringing them just viewership in terms of these videos to their platform. And if you're watching this, that means you have a clear advantage because the contests aren't filling. So you can use the code SAL for a free $25 to try that out. Best of luck in your closing out your weeks on this Sunday night slate. The Monday night video will be up in the morning first thing, and we can have the live stream and talk about that as we then close out week 7 with Monday night and roll into week 8. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'll see you in the next one. Subscribe button's right there. Take care, and we'll see you all in the next video.